Charles really made every effort to welcome Kate into the family. He said that they were close. He said that William was very, very lucky to have found Kate.
William and Catherine emptied Adelaide Cottage at midnight, and the reason underneath that sentence is the strangest thing you will ever hear. There is no family feud. Nobody leaked an email. No typical royal machinery is turning here. This is a story that makes you check your own floors at 2 in the morning. Engineers found something beneath the grass where George, Charlotte, and Louis play. A terrifying discovery that shattered the one thing this family sacrificed everything to protect. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The midnight evacuation and the discovery in the dirt. It started with a structural inspection. Adelaide Cottage is a small house on the Windsor estate, chosen deliberately by William and Catherine. They wanted their children to grow up with access to grass, doors they could open themselves, and something akin to an ordinary American-style childhood, far from the palace's galleries. Engineers arrived with clipboards and instruments to examine the foundations. It was typical work for a very old building. 17 minutes later, that ordinary evening took an unexpected turn. Beneath the cottage lies a network of passages. The brickwork is older than the cottage itself, with some of it dating back to the English Civil War. Every security sweep had missed it, and official records spanning decades contained no mention of it. However, the tunnels were only part of the issue. It was Tuesday in late November at roughly 1:15 to midnight. William and Catherine had gone to bed 3 hours earlier, and George, Charlotte, and Louis were asleep. Then the infrared sensors triggered. These sensors were installed within the walls of Adelaide Cottage and registered movement where nothing should have been moving, below the floorboards. William woke first, which made sense given his years of military training that had rewired his sleep cycles. The slight change in air pressure caused by protection officers moving through the lower corridors was sufficient to rouse him from sleep. Catherine woke seconds later, as mothers often do. Neither of them spoke. Having lived their entire adult lives under constant observation, they knew early on that in the first minute of a crisis, listening often reveals more than asking. The knock on the bedroom door was soft but unrelenting. William crossed the room in 4 strides and opened the door to find Marcus Headley, the head of their personal protection, standing in the dim hallway. Headley's expression had already conveyed the seriousness of the situation before he even spoke. 3 more heavily armed officers were positioned behind him in the corridor. No one was going to send this family back to bed with a polite reassurance. Headley informed them that the structural engineers had discovered evidence of recent human activity in the spaces directly beneath the house. This was not evidence from a century ago or even 50 years ago. It was recent. They found tools that showed no signs of rust, footprints in dust that had not settled, empty water bottles with purchase dates from the previous month, a folding chair, and a thermal blanket. And then there were the photographs. The images depicted the Wales family going about their ordinary day, taken from angles that suggested the photographer knew their exact schedule. Headley told William something important in 3 words. Sources say William repeated them to his wife exactly as he heard them. Under the house. Not at the gate, not over the wall, not in the trees like others who have tried to get close to that family. Under the floor of the room where his children sleep. Catherine moved toward the children's rooms before Headley had finished explaining. This detail sticks with me. She didn't wait for more information. She didn't ask any questions. As soon as she understood her children's safety was at risk, she was in the corridor. She had to wake George, Charlotte, and Louis gently. They needed to dress quickly and find a safe place to go. Investigators needed time to find out what was under their beds. Catherine had built a strong public image based on calmness. In that hallway, her calmness slipped just a little bit. Behind it was a mother who makes every decision based on one question. What happens to these 3 kids? William stood in the doorway, watching her as she moved from bed to bed. Her voice remained low as she told her confused children they were going on an adventure in the middle of the night. George, at 11, understands that his family faces challenges that others do not. Charlotte, who is 9, is sharper than people think. She asked the question that broke through her mother's adventure story. Are we safe here, Mommy? Catherine paused for half a second. William noticed this from the doorway. He understood what that brief pause cost her. The evacuation went smoothly. Security teams practice these situations often, hoping they will never have to use what they prepare for. William carried Louis down the stairs. The 6-year-old was still half asleep against his father's shoulder. Catherine followed, holding the older children's hands. Staff had already grabbed their essential go bags, which are updated 4 times a year and stored for easy access at midnight. This shows how prepared they are, despite their ordinary life. 3 armored vehicles waited in the driveway, engines running and routes set. Picture this. A woman stands on her driveway in the cold November air. She wears a heavy coat over what she went to bed in and holds one of her son's shoes that fell off on the stairs. She smiles down at 3 scared children to keep them calm. Grown men with earpieces and rifles surround her in the dark. This is the Princess of Wales, being moved out of her home by strangers with flashlights. The motorcade left at 12:43 a.m. It left behind a property that was becoming 3 things at once: a crime scene, an archaeological site, and the most serious security failure of the decade: the architecture of deception. By dawn, white forensic tents covered the front lawns of Adelaide Cottage. Each tent was positioned over an entrance to a hidden tunnel network beneath. Detective Chief Inspector Sarah Wright received the call at 12:30 in the morning. She was called in for 2 reasons: her excellent record on historical property crime and her security clearance, which allowed her to navigate the family's secretive rules. Her team used ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging to investigate. Ground-penetrating radar helps surveyors locate voids under solid ground without digging. This technology allowed the mystery to unfold overnight instead of taking years. The map they created revealed more than anyone expected. The tunnels extended beyond Adelaide Cottage, directly connecting to Windsor Castle and branching out to 4 other properties on the estate, including Frogmore Cottage and Royal Lodge. Consider this: there was a way to move around the Windsor estate without detection, bypassing every iron gate, armed checkpoint, and high-definition camera. Experts designed these systems by thinking about how an assassin could reach the royal family, with hundreds of millions of dollars spent on security. Yet no one on the staff knew this backdoor existed. While the tunnels themselves could be sealed and the internal maps censored, the situation escalated to a national security incident because of evidence left behind. Someone had been using these tunnels repeatedly, and recently. In one chamber beneath the room where Prince Louis sleeps, investigators found a makeshift camp. Someone had set up a chair, a heavy blanket, and enough bottled water for an extended stay. The investigation moved quickly and quietly, as is typical for anything involving the crown. However, it also needed to proceed slowly. Many artifacts recovered had historical value, so each had to be photographed, logged, and assessed twice: once for counter-terrorism purposes and once for the Royal Archives. Dr. Helena Ashworth from the Royal Collection Trust worked alongside counter-terrorism officers in a white tent. Her expertise in Tudor and Stuart architecture made her invaluable, as she could explain how these tunnels remained off modern architectural plans. By the afternoon, they had a clearer picture. The tunnel network was much older than Adelaide Cottage, dating back to at least the 1600s, with parts showing wear from World War II, when Windsor prepared for a German invasion that never occurred. 2 young princesses, Elizabeth and Margaret, hid behind those walls during the Blitz. In the following decades, the knowledge of these tunnels vanished. Not destroyed, but misfiled and forgotten in the royal archives, which are vast and often unread. King Charles received a morning briefing at Clarence House before his senior staff. While on the phone with his son, he remained calm. Once the call ended, sources indicated that he did not hide his anger. He has lived through many security threats. In 1982, a man named Michael Fagan entered Buckingham Palace and sat on the Queen's bed while waiting for security to react. This incident haunted royal security for decades. More recently, Jaswant Singh Chahal entered Windsor Castle on Christmas Day in 2021, armed with a crossbow and looking for the Queen. Both men scaled walls to gain entry. The palace's security measures have focused on preventing such breaches from above, but this threat came from below. That is why the king's tone changed during the call. There was also another reason it affected him deeply. The last time his family lost control over threats lurking in secrecy ended in a tunnel in Paris in August 1997. Charles walked behind a coffin with 2 boys who were 15 and 12. Now, 30 years later, his son calls him at midnight to report that a stranger had been hiding under the floorboards, watching his grandchildren. No one in that conversation needed to mention her name. In that family, they never do. The Stalker's Shrine. By that evening, MI5 joined the investigation, bringing digital resources that local units lacked. Agents began the slow task of reviewing 6 months of security footage from perimeter cameras, looking for familiar faces in suspicious cars parked for too long near Adelaide Cottage. The digital forensics team examined photographs from the chamber, removing the metadata to identify the camera model. They started to build a psychological profile of a man who invested considerable time and money into monitoring a family he had never met. By the first evening, the forensics team discovered something horrifying. It took another 2 days for the full impact of this news to reach the family. Catherine spent that day trying to maintain a normal routine. Her 3 children stayed in a temporary apartment at Kensington Palace, but sensed that nothing was ordinary. George's questions intensified as time passed. He understood enough about his security detail to recognize the difference between a simple issue and a serious evacuation. William found George standing at a tall window, gazing out at Kensington Gardens, tension in his small frame. It reminded William of a similar photograph of himself. Their conversation was brief and painfully honest. William had promised himself years ago that he wouldn't repeat the emotional distance of his upbringing. He wanted his children to feel safe sharing their fears with him without needing to go through a secretary. This promise was tested when George at 11 asked if the bad man was still out there. By day 3, the team found materials that turned the situation from a security breach into a psychological horror story. Recovery teams pulled thick documents from the tunnels stored in heavy waterproof containers by someone who wanted to keep them dry. They included maps from various centuries, marked up and annotated in handwriting that grew frantic over time. These documents were not the work of a tabloid photographer seeking profit. A man chasing a delusion created them. Professor James Harrington, who had spent his career studying royal properties, reviewed the documents and emerged shaken. The notes hinted at treasure, specifically an ancient myth that royals hid large amounts of valuables underground during the Civil War to protect them from Parliament. Jewels and gold buried under Windsor for nearly 400 years, waiting for the right person with the right map. This theory circulates on fringe internet sites but does not appear in legitimate archives. The author of those notes had transformed from a researcher into a fanatic. William sat across from Detective Chief Inspector Wright, who explained the intruder's profile. This person could read historical documents, used expensive professional survey equipment, and had the patience to conduct surveillance and exploration over a long period without triggering alarms. Then Wright delivered the news that left everyone breathless. In parts of the system accessible only by crawling through tight spaces, search teams found older camps, items dating back nearly 2 years. 2 winters, 2 Christmases with a house full of holiday decorations, 2 summers with children running through the garden, all while a man lay hidden in the damp dark, writing in a notebook and listening to their footsteps above. The journals the team found were in poor condition and revealed the man's descent into madness. Catherine reacted to this briefing with a fierce anger, realizing her earlier understanding of privacy was a complete illusion. She had accepted the loss of her privacy years ago, accepting cameras at every public event and juggling public opinions about her appearance and parenting. But this was entirely different. A man had been watching her children while they slept for 2 years, planning a grand finale that no one could yet define. Returning to that house was no longer just about changing locks. The ghost of a mother's promise. Every room in Adelaide Cottage needed to be checked for listening devices. The walls had to be torn out. The entire property needed a major upgrade to become a secure fortress. The very qualities that made the cottage appealing, its modesty, its simplicity, its quiet location among the trees, were now why it could not protect them. No one said it out loud, but Catherine thought a lot when she heard 2 years. After that, she never returned to that house as a resident. Charles called an urgent meeting at Buckingham Palace. He gathered MI5 leaders, government officials, and senior royal staff in one secure room. These meetings are usually calm, but this one was intense. The discussion went beyond the cottage. If something dangerous had been hidden under Windsor, what else could be buried beneath other important places? The Tower of London rests on ancient foundations. Hampton Court has Tudor structures. Buckingham Palace has been built, rebuilt, and partly demolished so many times that no one knows exactly what is underneath the throne room. Then came the inevitable issue in royal security talks. The press. Reporters had already noticed that the Wales family was not at Adelaide Cottage. Their routine had changed. The security setup was different. Something significant was happening at Windsor, hidden behind police tents. Someone had to decide how much of the scary truth could be shared with the public without giving anyone a guide to deeper problems. William and Catherine sat together at Kensington Palace that evening. The children were finally asleep. They addressed the heavy issue they had been avoiding for 3 long days. They had chosen a smaller home to give their children a bigger, more adventurous life. This decision had a serious cost neither of them had expected. Neither blamed the other in that quiet room. They both understood that every decision about raising a future king comes with serious consequences. Some consequences only become clear years later. William felt his own guilt, sharpened by his unchangeable role. He will be king. His family will always attract someone's obsession. No amount of care in raising them changes that harsh reality. He spent his adult life trying to balance royal duty and being a good father in the same home. Diana once carried her 2 young sons through the night to take them away from the palace, even if just for an hour. She wanted them to experience the real world, like going to a fast food place or driving in a regular car without royal symbols. Now her son was carrying his own child through the darkness for the opposite reason. The pressures of his job were still catching up with him. William learned very young that a camera aimed at his family is never just a camera. 28 years after walking behind his mother's coffin, a man was lying in the dirt under his son's room with a camera, trying to learn when no one was looking. The mind of the man in the dark. The investigation finally identified a suspect. Analysis of video footage kept showing the same man, likely in his late 40s. He was frequently seen near Adelaide Cottage, enough times that analysts dismissed any chance of it being a coincidence. His vehicle led police to a rented cottage 3 miles from the Windsor gates. Officers forced open the door, only to find it empty. The man had fled in a hurry, clearly aware that the police had discovered his tunnels. He vanished. The ensuing search used resources typically reserved for international terrorism. The reasoning was straightforward. He knew royal properties better than the guards, had advanced surveillance equipment, and had spent 2 years underground fixated on a delusion. Was he planning theft, harm, or even kidnapping? The uncertainty was enough to send helicopters into the sky looking for him. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A moderator on a niche online forum about royal architecture noticed concerning posts over the past year and a half. The account was called Windsor Truth Seeker. The posts included wild theories about hidden treasure on royal property, along with maps that matched the annotated pages in an evidence room in Berkshire. Dr. Miranda Foster, a forensic psychologist who studies unhealthy attachments to public figures, examined his online activity. She found a disturbing pattern. Interest evolved into intense research. Research turned into wild theories. The theories became a personal grievance. Somewhere along the way, the writer stopped being just a sad man interested in the royal family and began to see himself as the hero of a story. In that story, the royal family was blocking him from a great discovery. Finally, his name was uncovered: Malcolm Hendricks. At 47, he had been a mid-level curator at a small historical society in Kent. His colleagues saw him become stranger and more isolated, prompting the society to let him go quietly a year before he visited Windsor. After that, he had no job and devoted all his time to studying royal properties. He was dangerously skilled at it. He could read a complex 17th century architectural plan like a map. He concealed his tracks in archives and could locate a heavy oak door lost to history 400 years ago. With nothing else in his life to focus on, Hendricks crossed an invisible boundary. He began to believe that the Wales family stood between him and a significant discovery that would restore his reputation and prove his former bosses wrong. 3 innocent children asleep in a cottage became obstacles in his dark narrative. His journals revealed the worst. Hendricks spent 8 to 10 hours at a time underground, preferring the silence that suited his deteriorating mind. At first, his entries about the family were clinical, noting times, routines, and the weather. Over time, they changed dramatically. He wrote about Catherine and the children as if he knew them well, despite having never spoken to them. He created imagined relationships with a woman and 3 kids who did not know he existed, using secret photographs taken from hidden spots. When William read the psychological assessment, he grasped the issue immediately. Motion sensors and better cameras would not solve the problem. A man who dedicated 2 years to being in the shadows wouldn't simply return to normal life after hearing about police finding his camp. Hendricks was still out there. the unpayable toll on a family. Catherine had a tough conversation with her son after the profile was published. George overheard enough to know that someone had been watching them and living under their house. The police had not caught him yet. Catherine needed to explain this to her 11-year-old son without scaring him. There wasn't a good way to do that. She had to be honest, hold his hand, and stay with him. The upgrades at Adelaide Cottage happened quickly. They didn't just block the old entrances. Each one got military-grade sensors that detect the smallest movement. The grounds now had more cameras and facial recognition to prevent similar intrusions in the future. These upgrades were necessary and correct, but they made the house feel less like a safe place. Meanwhile, the investigation expanded. People had to ask a scary question. Was Hendricks working alone? The dark online forums he used revealed a hidden world. These communities shared paranoid theories about the family and encouraged illegal actions. The children dealt with their trauma in different ways. Louis, 6, had nightmares about monsters and men with guns. Catherine reassured him that the ground was just ground. 9-year-old Charlotte began checking doors and windows at night. This was a small but heavy burden. George became quiet as he watched his parents' hidden worries. By the 3rd week, the family felt a mental shift that no security upgrades could change. Even if the police caught the intruder Hendricks, the house would never feel the same. After 2 years of a man hiding under their home, the fear lingered. William and Catherine faced a hard choice: find a different home or move to Kensington Palace, giving up peace for security. The public announcement of their strategic relocation hid the truth. An unseen man had forced them to leave. On their last morning, heavy November rain accompanied their departure. The press filled the airwaves with reports of their move. The family wanted privacy, but became a news spectacle, with public speculation about their decision. Catherine turned off the TV after hearing a presenter call their move an overreaction. Taking a final walk through the cottage, she felt their joyful memories were now tainted. Malcolm Hendricks, now a fading shadow of his misguided obsession, had shattered their sense of safety and left only fear behind.